yeah, I might quickly, I'll quickly go over the roadmap at the moment. Take a bit of a break from coding. So, the Rave wants me to set a release for 2022. And I'm probably not going to get into confirming any release date at the moment, just because, well, yeah, we're still in pre-alpha, and I feel like trying to promise a release date would be not a good idea right now. Mainly because, well, I'll tell you about the nature of pre-alpha. It's hard to kind of describe, and I'll bring it into context a bit. For those who don't know what pre-alpha means, I'll try and see if I can get like an example. So I'll open this up. So basically, most games go through something resembling this. We're gonna call this the game development timeline, or the stages. So at the moment, I've been in pre-production for a while now, and it turns out for like bigger projects, it's actually not too uncommon. It was a bit weird for me at first because, I guess I've never worked on a project this big before, so I'm not quite sure exactly what to expect. And that's sort of why I'm doing it, because I want to learn, I want experience, and to do it for myself. And it's fun, so yeah, why not? But throughout like high school and after high school, I did a lot of small projects, and they follow the same kind of thing, except it's way faster normally. A lot of the games I did didn't even have like a pre-production phase, like, or they did, but it lasted like 5 minutes, and then we went straight into production, and then like in a day or two we would finish. And like, I've done a lot of small games in the past. I've done, I think the largest project I'd done before Project Feline was about a year. And currently I think we're almost at 3 years now with Project Feline. But yeah, so going from doing small games like Game Jam stuff to this, it's like quite big of a jump. And it's honestly, like, it scares me a lot because I don't really know how to navigate it as well as I would a smaller game, because I have more experience with smaller games. But small games are so boring, like I don't want to do them anymore, and that's why I'm doing Project Feline, because it just got so tiring and I couldn't really build a vision with a Game Jam title. It just, for what I want to do, I just needed a bigger project. A NAS chart. I'll have to, hold on, what's that? I've heard that term before, actually. But oh no, this is something different. This is also a very handy tool, by the way. But this isn't what I'm talking about, although I have used these before. They're very handy. This is more of a project management thing. This is more of a general, like, big picture scheduling kind of perspective. So anyway, so yeah, games will usually go through these phases. They'll start off, I usually like to just call concept and pre-production the same thing. I call that pre-alpha for me. And pre-alpha is basically anything before alpha. And alpha, to me, means production. I don't know if there's like a agreed upon definition for all of these words, because they tend to change depending on where you look. But for my personal use, for me, alpha means production. Actually, I need to find, this is a bit too simple, actually. I don't know if there's... Okay, yeah, this is a bit closer to what I want. So basically, I kind of think as concept and pre-production as the same. So I see those two as the same thing. Production is mostly where all the content is going to be made. And then submission, I would call that beta. Like, I'm not quite, yeah, like bug fixing and stuff. Like, I would call that the beta phase, because that's when that's when you decide no more new content, no more new features, just fix everything, and then you get to the point where you can release and ship it. So that's release. That's called the same thing for me. But for all of these other ones, is there like a, where's paint? So basically this is pre-alpha. Oh, I know I spelt it wrong, but screw it. There we go, pre-alpha. Then this is alpha, and then this is beta. And then this is, well, yeah, release. So at the moment, I'm still in that pre-alpha stage, and that's why I kind of don't want to tell like talk too much about my plans, because pre-alpha is for me what defines it is it's the very chaotic period, and it needs to be. It needs to be very chaotic, because that's kind of, if you're making, I mean, I guess the way I look at games, like some people look at games as like software or a product or something, and I kind of see it more as a painting, like an art piece of some kind, which might sound weird, but that's sort of how I feel when I make games. I think of it as an extension of me. So I kind of, and because I also paint and draw, I kind of think of it as a work of art in a sense. And I'm sure there's some games we can all agree on that are absolute masterpieces, just as we would refer like to as a painting or a drawing or something. So I think this also happens in art too, by the way. They kind of have these phases, just in much shorter periods. But you need to go through that very chaotic state to actually figure out what it is you are making. And that, I think, it's more complicated than just figuring out what you're making, because you kind of get, like for me at least, it helps me to get to a point where I really know, like, on a deeply, I don't know if you could maybe call it spiritual, like on a deeply spiritual level maybe, I know what this is. And that kind of inspires every decision. Because in pre-alpha, my goal is to figure out the criteria by which the rest of the game will conform to. So that's a criteria not just for the design and the mechanics, but for the art, for the music, for the feeling of the entire game. And that to me, it's really important that I get that right, because I'm really sick and tired of making games that don't feel like anything. Because I've made lots of small games, and yes, they on a like a polished level, they might feel good, but it's, I want something that feels, I guess, more close to home in a sense. Like, I want to make something that it feels like something that is really, like, personally close to me, I guess. Whereas Game Jam games, I can't really do that, because you don't have as much time and the game isn't as big and something like that. So a few feelings as examples might be, like, some words I've thrown around in planning. Because I kind of want, because I'm not really making a game. I think that's the thing that is kind of hard to communicate, because I don't really see it as just a game. It's an experience. It's something that someone is going to feel things from, and that's what games are. That's why we care about them. It's not because of their mechanical complexity. I mean, hell, you like look at games like Anthem or something. Like, they have very complex mechanics, but that doesn't always equal a successful game, right? Just from what this is just from what I've observed, by the way. By no means, it's very likely I will get this wrong, purely because statistics, but I feel it's very important to get the feeling across and understand what my game is going to make people feel. And I think if I work from that point, it'll be better. Instead of just trying to go, oh, well, this mechanic feels nice and this mechanic feels nice, and what if I put them together? Because yes, that can work by accident. If you just happen to pick two good mechanics that mesh well, like, you can get that right and be successful that way. I think that can work, but I feel like it's better to actually understand why you like things. And like, I've really thought about the games I've played and tried to really get to the bottom of why I care about these games. And I'm trying to take that with Project Feline too. And I think until I'm getting really close, by the way, to what that is. I kind of want to sell this sort of escape, this abstract, optimistic escape. I think that's what I'm doing. It's not really a game. It's an escape, and it sounds very strange when I put it that way. But that's sort of how I feel it should be. I want people to sort of go to my game and they want to escape their own life and delve into the world of Project Feline and be immersed in it. And there's a lot of ways to do that. There's different levels of immersion. You could go super immersive like Skyrim or Witcher, or you could do something a bit smaller that still feels just as impactful, and maybe immerse. There's a lot of ways to do that, but I'm still figuring out the specifics. But I know that I want people to feel, I guess, taken away to somewhere cool when they play it. And I think that's important because, like, the mobile sort of games that I've developed, like, when I mean mobile games, you know, like small games, right? Like Infinite Runners. Like, I don't get that escape from those. I just don't feel it. And that's why I don't play them, because I don't feel attached to them. And for me, a game that the games I love the most have that. They have that escapism to it. So... And yeah, I've been doing a lot of pre-production work as well in the background, concept art and documents and stuff, trying to figure all that out. I won't show all of it because it's still very chaotic. But until that is over, I don't want to start setting things in stone, because I don't think it's going to be a good idea to try and set things in stone before I really have decided on this is the feeling, this is the vision sort of thing. So at the moment, I'm getting close to there. And I thought very carefully about the additions of these new mechanics, because that's also going to be, for this particular kind of game, mechanics are very important. So that's why I've been spending time on those lately. The next big thing is probably going to be more level design and stuff, which I've been doing a lot of in the past few years. But getting the combination of those together and then flavoring it with something cool, that's sort of what I'm working towards, and I'm making those steps to get there. But a lot of that kind of is in... I think you need that space to be experimental with it. I think that's why I'm still in pre-alpha, because I want the space to be able to... how to put it? The space to be able to, like, experiment and fail at certain things too, because that's also important. I think if I try and rush it and try and wrap it up too soon without a baked, like a fully like fledged idea of what this is, because I don't want to get into production, I don't want to get into alpha and then completely change the direction of things. I want to make little incremental corrections. Like if you imagine you're like sailing a ship. During alpha, I think it's only sensible that you'll need to make course corrections, you know, because rocks might get in the way of your destination and you might not be able to see those. You know, you can equate those to unforeseen circumstances and you can't avoid those. But I don't want to get to a point where I decide mid-alpha to sail to a completely different place, because I think that's just where development hell will ensue. So I want to make sure I know not only where I'm sailing in pre-alpha, but I want to know why I'm sailing there and why that's important. Because I think if you get that and communicate that, then you'll never forget it. And throughout the rest of alpha, you'll always have that vision because you've actually put in the time to think. And you know you want to go here and you know why you want to go there. And I think if you know that, it means you're more likely to stick to it, because you have done the work to decide, yes, and you've decided that you're not going to change it. You've decided that this is what you're locking yourself into. But to get to that point of certainty, you can certainly spend too long in that phase, and that's not something I'm trying to discount. You can definitely spend too long there, but I think it's better to spend too long than to not spend enough time, I think. If you look at something like Doom, for example, like Doom 4, which turned into Doom 2016, that started development back in 2007, I think. And it didn't really go anywhere. It was like in development hell for 10 years until they finally settled on, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. And then they made Doom 2016, and it was really good. I really liked it. If anyone's watched the NoClip documentary about Doom, I recommend it. It's so interesting. They basically finally, like, it took them a while, but they got there. They understood what Doom was about. I think, I don't know, maybe it was something about the 2007. Maybe it was something about that time period that made them lose sight of what Doom was supposed to be. And they were talking about, I don't know if you guys saw the trailers for that time, but they were basically pitching like a Call of Duty looking game. And at some point in development, they'd done all this work already. They'd done like 3 years of work on cutscenes and stuff. And then they realized, actually, you know what? This just doesn't feel like Doom. And they had to actually sit down and spend a lot of time figuring out, what is Doom? Why do people care about Doom? And it ultimately came down to, you want to kill demons? Yeah, I want to kill demons. Let's go kill some demons. It was so simple, the solution. But they lost sight of that because they were trying to justify the demons being there, and they were trying to build this whole world around the demons. And that's not why people cared about Doom. People didn't go to Doom for the lore or the the world building. They came to kill demons, which is still an escape, because I talked about like escapism. That's still a kind of escape. Just because it doesn't have lore doesn't mean it can't be an escape from something. I think that's something people get confused with a lot. Like, I feel like a lot of people, like I was talking to a friend a few months ago about writing stories, and he did this thing where he wrote this entire like backstory lore for this world he wants to do. And I love that, by the way, because I love building worlds. But there's a difference between building worlds and building stories. You can still have a sense of world in a story, but I think if it gets to the point where the world is taking precedence over the story, it's difficult, because I don't think people are going to care about a world without a story to go with it. And that story doesn't have to be necessarily a linear story. It could be the story of you doing stuff, like gameplay stories, you know? Like, if you find this one specific cave in Skyrim and you do something silly, like that could be a story, because then you tell your friends about it. Like, that can constitute a story. But if you don't allow for any story to happen and it's just world building and detail, I think that's difficult. But anyway, that's like a separate topic. But with Doom, it was basically like they got to that point after a lot of development hell where they realized, hey, you know what? Like, no one actually cares about the world building, because they had this whole thing where they had an intro. It was like 2 minutes long and you didn't kill one demon. And then you go to the game currently as it shipped. Within the first 30 seconds, you're killing demons already, because they realized that's what we're selling. It's the experience of killing demons. And it was just very, like, if you listen to, I think Hugo Martin is his name, one of the project directors, like he knows where it's like, what if like they know, we all know we're here to kill demons, so let's just go kill demons. Let's not try and dress it up. Let's just go kill demons. And it was really cool watching that. But it also, you can learn so much from it too, because they were in that development hell and they failed, and then they succeeded because they had to spend that time to really get what they were doing. And I think I took away a lesson from that, where I'm like, hey, I should really pay attention to what I'm actually building, so I don't end up in 10 years of development hell. And it's like, I think it's so cool that people post that on the internet now. Like, you hear so many stories, because you can kind of just learn from other people's failures instead of having to fail yourself. Doesn't necessarily mean you won't fail. It's just kind of handy having other people's failures in your own brain repository of knowledge. So anyway, so I'm sort of at that stage where I'm coming out of it though. Like, I'm starting to get, I would say I'm about here-ish, or maybe a bit before, of like the timeline. I feel like I feel like I know what this is going to be. I just need to test and experiment. Because it's one thing to write it down, it's another to actually do it in practice. So I'm at the stage where I think I've made those decisions. I just need to actually try and prototype it and build it and actually see if it's anything at all like what I pictured. Because if it's not, I'm going to be in big trouble. Because if it's not anything like I pictured, that means back to the drawing board, or it means it's not what I pictured, but let's go with it anyway. So that's the stage where I want to get to. So what that means, well, I'm hoping to show you guys in a few months' time, because it's one thing to talk about it, but I'd rather just show you. It'll just take time, of course. But the next build of the game I want to show I want it to look more like what the game's the final game will be, but only a very small slice of it. And it's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of work to get to that point. And one way the start of it comes with these mechanics, of course, because I've got a few and they're fun, but I think I can push them a bit more and make them even better. And I think that's where I'm going to call it once I finish these last few sets of goals. So I've got them written on my website, of what my personal goals are. So this is stuff I've done in the first panel here. That's completed goals in December. Currently, my goal, I want to see if I can get this all done by the end of April, but we'll see. But I'm planning to implement basically the final touches to the core mechanics, besides bug fixes. Like, that'll come later, but just the rest of the core stuff. And then after that, it's gonna be, yeah, I think I estimated like later this year, I want to try and get the entire game to that point of looking like what I want it to, for just one level, of course. And then if it's like anything I imagined at that point, if it's like I build it and it's like, okay, this is gonna work, then yeah, that's when alpha will start. Because that's when I know, like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going in this direction, let's go. And it's just gonna be content. So there's not gonna be any more decisions about whether to change the mechanic or whether to like huge decisions. Like, there's not going to be any more of that, hopefully, in alpha. That's when I just want to be focusing on content. And then, yeah. So but I guess that's the thing, because those are really big decisions. And that's why pre-alpha, I think, can take a long time, occasionally. Because, especially if you don't have the experience from another project, it's definitely going to take longer, I think, because it's really getting to know. It's just making those big decisions, and having the space to experiment with that stuff and actually test things, because I think that's very important. I don't think I can make decisions without testing them in a practical sense. It's one thing to write down the idea, but I've gone through so many projects where I've written a design document and then the game turns out nothing like the design document. And this time I decided, no, I want to do it a bit different. I want to see if I can test and document and plan at the same time. So yeah, so that's all where it's at the moment. Anyway, that was a bit of a long story, but hopefully that's sort of giving people like an idea of where I'm at in my own mindset. Again, yeah, I don't really want to talk too much about the specifics because, again, the pre-alpha is chaotic as it needs to be, and I don't know, showing that publicly I think is kind of risky, because you're kind of, I don't want to temper expectations too much, because the game is so different already to what it was in 2018. Oh, thanks, by the way, the N-Sphere, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Appreciate it. I also really love your drawings, by the way, the N-Sphere. You do some good stuff. But anyway, I forgot what I was... Yeah, I guess that's my point, really. I guess, yeah, so showing all that chaotic mess publicly is just kind of stressful, so I haven't really been talking about it too much. Because, you know, you need that space to fail, and it's easier to fail when there's not, like, 60,000 people looking over your shoulder, ready to ridicule you at any moment if you make one little mistake. So, I mean, yeah, like, there's other game projects out there. I've seen some projects and it's like, oh, that's pretty rough, like some of the stuff I see. So yeah, it's stuff I think that should sort of, a lot of these decisions I just want to keep to myself mainly, because I know where it's going and you guys will know where it's going, but I'd rather show you rather than tell you.